Welcome to the 501 Companion Podcast, an educational and news podcast/vodcast for 501c3 charitable organizations that want to create better content, optimize their technology, and improve their marketing to better serve their mission. This is episode number 25, the second show of 2022. I'm Buddy Scalera, the Chief Content Officer and the host of the 501 Companion Podcast. My career has been focused on digital marketing, social media, and emerging technologies like component content systems and NFTs. I'm also a professional comic book writer working and teaching the craft and business of making comics. My co-host for the 501 Companion Podcast is the Chief Operating Officer at Family Promise, Sandra Miniutti. She is a versatile nonprofit executive with 20 plus years of extensive experience in public relations, marketing, fundraising, and strategic planning. She is deeply committed to advancing a vibrant and healthy philanthropic marketplace in which charities can have the necessary skills and resources to solve our community's most pressing issues. Sandy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
This is your second episode as our co-host. Are you excited?
I'm very excited. First time we get to interview somebody together. This will be
fun. It's going to be great. So let me bring Matt into the room with us, and as he's getting admitted, I'm going to do a quick introduction. Our first guest together is Matthew Viola. He's the Vice President of Program Analyst Operations at Charity Navigator, the world's largest and most trusted nonprofit evaluator. He's also their longest tenured employee there with 19 years at Charity Navigator. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Good morning, buddy. Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning. Now, this is, we're meeting for the first time, Matt, but I think you and Sandy go back quite a ways.
That's correct. We worked at Charity Navigator in the early days for many years together.
We started, I think, the same week and went through training together and really saw the organization evolve a whole lot over those years. And Matt continues to take the organization into the future and evolve the rating system and make it better. But yeah, we had a lot of laughs along the way. I saw Matt go from being a single guy to being a married guy to being a dad. Lots of change.
Yeah, changes the organization, change personally, definitely.
Yeah, Matt. So 19 years at any organization is definitely a big achievement.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The mission and the people have kept me there, and I truly believe in what we're doing at Charity Navigator, and the people I work with are great. And yeah, I'm enjoying it. We're changing the game and always iterating and adding to our analysis and what we offer.
And Matt, as our listeners are coming in, they may not be aware of what Charity Navigator does. Can you give us the brief overview? Yeah,
sure, absolutely. I mean, our main mission is to make impactful giving easier for everyone. We want to reach donors, whether they're giving, $5, $10, $20 to thousands of dollars. We also want to be a good storyteller for great nonprofits and the great work that they're doing, because there are so many of them. But we believe that there wasn't enough information out there for donors to make intelligent decisions to the philanthropy they wanted to take part in. And so we started the organization, just a few people, and we started radio organizations more and more over time. We're trying to broaden our analysis, but we really want to guide giving to the most efficient, effective nonprofits, and give good benchmarking to nonprofits, whether they're just starting out and they're not being rated yet, but they know sort of what to shoot for down the road.
Yeah, that's terrific. Sandy, why don't you lead off, because Matt, and I'm sure you're going to know the answers to some of these questions that we started off with, but why don't you lead off?
Yeah, I think that it's interesting to speak a little bit about your background. I get a lot of people asking me, I guess at this point in my life too, especially midlife, people are trying to change their careers and enter the nonprofit sector from the for-profit world, and they're not sure about how to go about doing that. And that's something that you did, right, when you joined Charity Navigator. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your career path?
Yeah, sure. Went to college for finance as a major, and assumed I'd have a long career on Wall Street. I did start there. I was with a Wall Street investment firm for a few years out of college. I did enjoy it, But I realized very quickly, the different aspects of that sort of work weren't for me. And I wasn't sure where I was going to head next. And I got extremely lucky by stumbling across this job ad for a small startup nonprofit, close to home too, which sort of helped. I didn't have to travel to Manhattan anymore. But it sounded really interesting because I could use my financial skills in a different sector, and something that I always felt charity is important, but I never thought it'd be a career necessarily. And I do recommend a lot of people. I would recommend to anyone who's in for-profit that there's a lot of great jobs in the nonprofit sector, a lot of interesting work, and also your skills can translate very easily. And some nonprofits are really in need of skills like marketing, finance, all that type of stuff outside of even fundraising. And so, I joined this organization. That was a big chance. I went to a big, well-known Wall Street firm to a small New Jersey nonprofit. But, the mission was so unique in that, we're a national scope. I'm not sure I would have went necessarily right out of Wall Street to an organization that maybe did direct services. This was really interesting because it was definitely something I could use my financial analysis skills that I learned in the for-profit sector, in the nonprofit sector, and affect, giving nationally. And the idea of just trying to push the envelope to make charities more transparent and efficient over time sounded great. And I just did feel a need that, I could help out with all the tools I had and try something in a new arena. And I guess it stuck and I enjoyed it, because now 19 years later, I'm still at the same organization, still in this sector.
Yeah, I think
Matt, oh, go ahead, Sandy. You
I was just going to say it was a really unique experience that we had at the start, because it was a startup. It was a startup website, digital media, but it was also a nonprofit. And we were like, coming in and rating charities and really disrupting the marketplace, the philanthropic marketplace. It was very exciting, even though really what we were doing at the end of the day was typing in numbers into a database, but the impact of the work that we were doing was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think, what's more stark is in the beginning, there was a lot of pushback from the sector and individual nonprofits. And over my years there, I went from seeing nonprofits sort of being very, they didn't want to be part of what we're doing and thought we'd go away eventually. So now they come to us saying, how do we get rated? What do we have to do to get rated? And so it was interesting to see that. But I think they realized that donors are becoming more savvy. They want more information, and they're maybe not just going to give because they're asked. They're going to do some homework.
Matt, you had mentioned you came from Wall Street, from a big firm experience there in Wall Street. What did you learn at Wall Street that has actually carried through your entire career, not just the immediate influence when you first started, but has carried through these 19 years?
Wow, that's a good question. I don't think I've ever been asked before. So, but I mean, I think right at the top of my head, like, data matters, information matters. And I think, there's a ton of that in the for-profit sector, and it's very timely in the for-profit sector. And the nonprofit sector seems to lag a bit in the amount of data and information out there, as well as the timeliness of it. Now I get it, they're doing a lot of important work, and maybe the bookkeeping and the data comes towards the end of their checklist and things they need to get done. But I think, people make decisions based on that. And, that's part of Charity Navigator's thing, especially in the early days, was saying, almost treat it like an investment. You're going to do research before you pick a mutual fund, do some research before you pick a charity. And so I think data, making it available is something that I think affects, all sectors, including my old work and my current work.
No, that's a super great point, isn't it, Sandy? And I think you had mentioned that as well, that data can be used to guide decisions, and data can be misleading, but it can help you if you understand how to use data. Isn't that right, Sandy?
Yeah, 100%. I think something that those of us working in the nonprofit sector and donors don't always acknowledge is that there's 1 million nonprofits in America. Yeah. I mean, that's just a huge number. And so, we want to lead with our heart, but then you want to have the data to prove that nonprofit you're interested in supporting is really having the change in the world that you want to see. And I think, the work that Matt does at Charity Navigator really helps to bring more confidence to donors, so that hopefully we can give more money, bring more money into the sector, and we can have more resources to tackle all these challenges that we face. but data.
That's really interesting. Matt, how has the rating system and the collection of data evolved since you and Sandy started in this business?
Yeah, greatly in many ways, both in what we do and how we do it. The early days, we, the early founders and CEO and whatnot of Charity Navigator realized this is what we wanted to do, but how do we get the data? So thankfully, the IRS makes the 990 by federal law available if you ask. And it was crazy in those early days. We used to go to actually send letters to nonprofits saying, send us your last 3 990s. Because at that point, they weren't as readily available. And some would push back and say, well, it's federal law, you have to give it to us. So we get data, we'd manually enter 990 data and sift through pages of 990s to get the information. Then thankfully, the IRS started making this available on DVDs, believe it or not, that you'd pay and they'd mail out on a monthly basis. So somewhere in the basement of Charity Navigator, there's stacks of DVDs. Then now, more recently, they put that data on the website that you could just clean it more easily. And with e-filing and 990 becoming more prevalent and actually mandatory, that makes everything easier. And then also more internally, Charity Navigator started out with only measuring some financial metrics, and that was it. And we had to make clear to donors, hey, this is only a small part of the picture. And over time, we're going to grow our analysis, but it's important to have those sort of core financial stability, efficiency metrics in place. Then we started looking at more governance practices and transparency practices, and we went from 7 metrics to 24 metrics. And then more recently, in the past 2 years, in order to scale the number of charities we rate and get a little bit wider, broad swath of information, we've started what we call the Encompass rating system, which is now going to look at stuff way beyond things we've ever looked at before, and hopefully get at that impact results piece, as well as internal leadership and culture and community of the organization. So we're adding metrics constantly now and really trying to build on what we started and go beyond just those core metrics.
Pretty cool. And for me personally, I took that then into my career now at Family Promise, and we developed a set of what we call, so we have affiliates out in the field, 200 of them. We have what we call affiliate health metrics. So I score all the Family Promise affiliates on this set of metrics that look at their finances, their fundraising, their governance, their programmatic outcomes. And then we don't publicize that, but then my team works with the affiliate if they're scoring low in an area to help level them up, give them templates, tools, training, whatever it is that they need so that they can improve. But I think what Matt is speaking to is a nonprofit needs to have this holistic, they have to have everything firing. It can't just be great finances or great fundraising or a meaningful mission. It all has to come together to really be effective.
That's pretty amazing. And I think that the intelligent way that you've used data, Sandy, has helped your charity, Family Promise, to be a 4-star rated charity. I remember you were telling us that.
Like 9 years in a row, Matt, or something. Maybe you don't know off the top of your head. But we're pretty proud of that.
What's it feel like, Sandy, to be a 4-star rated charity? What does it mean to you as a charity leader?
It's super important because it validates our work. My team works really hard, and it's great to know that that's recognized externally. And of course, it's super meaningful for us when we're talking with corporate partners and individual donors. It gives them that sense of confidence that we're a safe bet for their philanthropic investment. So it's really, really critical to the work that we do.
And Matt, out in the wider market, obviously, a lot of people in charities. Are you aware of the massive responsibility of Charity Navigator, and does that drive you every day when you get in to do work?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. We have to be very careful what we're doing, and we have a lot of checks and balances in place. We can't just put up a rating and say whoops. So we have a lot of quality control up front to make sure that before we put up that rating, we stand behind it and it's accurate. But yeah, like Sandy was saying, it's a great third-party validator. I mean, organizations use our stamp of approval in a lot of ways. We have over 11 million people unique visitors to our website a year. over $130 million have been given through our website to the charities. And so people are looking, and, to say that, we've been vetted, if you're a nonprofit, to say we've been vetted by, third-party independent source, it means a lot. And so, yeah, we take that to heart, and we know, we love the stories of hearing about how important it is and how excited people are to get that letter from us that they got our stamp of approval.
Yeah, it's definitely brought new donors into our organization because they go to the website, they go to Charity Navigator, they're looking for a group that does the kind of work that we do, and they find our 4-star rating there, and then they give us a call and they, want to get to know us more. But it's definitely brought a lot more people to our organization.
And I think, donors, there's so many choices. Like Sandy said, there's over 1 million nonprofits, many of which are doing the same type of work. And so, donors are just inundated with asks, and sometimes they might either have donor fatigue or just not know where to start. And so that's what we like to do also, sort of break it down and make it a little easier for them to make those decisions and not feel as lost and who to choose and afraid they're going to choose wrongly.
What would you say are like 5 things that charities should do to instill confidence in their work and help them, raise the money that they need from the public? Or 3 or whatever.
Sure, I comment. I mean, so, what Charity Navigators always stood behind is just transparency, as much transparency as possible. Even when there are difficult times or there's a minor scandal, which is rare, which I should point out that, like, the great thing about what we've found in our work is that the vast majority of this industry is doing the right thing. They are efficient, they are accountable and transparent. And even, outside of sort of the metrics we do, we're always scanning the news to make sure there's no, scandals that turned up yesterday and in the news today. And that's also very rare. I mean, that's called our advisory system, and there's about 400 advisories up on our site currently. I mean, that's again out of 1 million charities. Now, maybe we're not catching everything, but we do a pretty far scan of that information. So, donors want to know what's going on. And like I said, they even forgive mistakes or missteps if you're clear about what happened and you're taking corrective action. That's something even the IRS deems on the 990, that if you list that you had something go wrong, you should put, what happened, when it happened, and what your corrective action is. So transparency is key. And I think the other thing would be, I come back to it a lot, but sort of the hard data, like, the nice pictures that you put on your annual report are great, but donors really want to see how you're moving the needle on the cause that you're trying to further, and really get at some nitty-gritty information about how you're making a difference.
That's such great insight about transparency and coming forward if there's a mistake made, right? Charities are people, right? They're just employees trying to do their best, and sometimes they don't. Do you recall any charities, and you don't even have to name them, Matt, that had stumbled and then recovered because they just had a good way of addressing the situation?
Yes, definitely. Probably be hard to give too much detail without giving some away. Probably be able to figure out, like you said, I probably wouldn't want to give names, but there's anything from some leadership turmoil where, they clear house and they sort of start anew and get their house in order, to maybe some accounting checks and balances weren't there, and, something went wrong and then they fix that. So we've definitely seen that. And then the nice thing that I think we do is we sort of give the opportunity. So it's not like a one and done, like there's opportunity for our grading to change over time, even multiple times in a year. If they realize, hey, we missed some information or our 990 needs to be amended, we allow for that. And then when we get that amended 990, we'll update the rating accordingly. So yeah, there's definitely cases where organizations have, misstep, but course corrected, and that's fine. Especially if you're a donor and you want to have a long-term relationship with the organization, that could happen. And, like you said, mistakes happen, but, if you're upfront about it and you have a good way of correcting it, I think donors will stick with you, and that's fine.
What's advice that you would give to donors?
So I think that they have to, so that the one thing that we find is, we want more information and we want to go beyond some of the data sources that we've had in the past. But to do that, the nonprofits themselves, now I know they're extremely busy, but they have to, play along a little bit too and provide more information to us or we're trying to partner as much as possible because we don't want to force a nonprofit to give us data they're already giving someone else. So we do at Charity Navigator try to partner with other organizations that may be already getting that information elsewhere. But I would say that, donors should make clear that, they're not going to give just because they ask, and they should push the nonprofits to, share information to organizations like Charity Navigator or provide information themselves about beyond what their, annual report might say, or, high level stuff, really down to the detailed information about, what they're doing. But, it's important. Without the donor money, the charities won't get too far. So donors have a lot of say in this and a lot of stake in the game.
That's a good point. I always think too that donors have a responsibility as well, once they've vetted a charity, to trust the charity and not get obsessed about salaries and different pieces of how the nonprofit operates. When you start to handcuff them and tell them they can only spend your donation on this program or that program, that can really impede the work of the nonprofit. So I think it's super critical to have that relationship and to vet the organization, but then really trust them to do good work with your money, and let them, make sure they report that back to you, but not to get into the weeds of telling them how to operate, which sometimes donors like to do, which I understand, but.
Right. No, that's a great point. Yeah. Like, unrestricted gifts, things like that. You want to make sure that they have some room to do what they think is best because they know best. It's true. And I agree with the salaries. I mean, that's a thing that we've, I hear that all the time from donors, and we try to move that conversation to, don't focus on, just how much. I mean, they're doing great work, and some of these organizations are decent size and very complex, and you should be competitive with your salaries to hire, quality people to do this work, because it's important work.
Sandy and Matt, for both of you, imagine a charity listening here on how they can improve or maximize their impact, and they get that question. I'll go to you first, Matt. How should a charity position their response to a donor who is challenging salaries, for example?
I think it's all, you got to put in perspective. I think one, at Charity Navigator, we make sure that they do have policies in place, specifically with CEO compensation. There is a case that, there is this best practice to say, hey, we compare our salaries to like size and mission organizations and make sure they're comparable. But really, I think as long as they're clear about the work they're doing, how they came up with this, but yeah, they have to move that conversation beyond just the dollar amount and, make it clear that where the money's going and how it's, being used towards the mission. Because a lot of people get it wrong too. They think that certain people are only doing certain things, but like a CEO might be paid a good salary, but they might be doing fundraising, running a program or two, running all the, financial, spreadsheets and the background stuff and all that. So yeah, it's a lot of work, and they should be paid accordingly. And like I said, we don't want to lose all our best people to the for-profit sector because we can't provide a good wage.
Yeah, I have this conversation quite often in my role, speaking with boards out in the field and why they should be paying the executive directors well. You don't want your executive director working an extra 40 hours a week so they can pay their rent. I mean, especially for an organization like ours, where we're trying to deal with family homelessness and the housing affordability issue, you want your executive director to be able to focus 100% on the work that they're doing at your organization. And it's really expensive to lose great talent. You have to find somebody new and train them and get them up to speed and all that. So that's a conversation I usually have with board members who are donors as well. And then some of our funders have been giving us money to pass through to our affiliates for them to do programmatic work. And they want to know that, 100% of the money is being written out in checks to the families that we work with. And my role is to help them understand, no, I have to have the case manager there, and we got to pay for the case manager because they're helping those families find the services that they need. They're helping them deal with the trauma of what they're experiencing. And we have data that shows having the case manager with the money together is really the most effective approach at getting families stably housed long-term. So yeah, we have this conversation a lot in the sector. And I think it's important for nonprofits to tell their donors the story of why this person's salary is important and show them the data. What's the outcome? How does this person, make us more effective?
Matt, Sandy touched on this in the last episode when we were speaking, and I was wondering if you could address how data can be used to mislead as well, and also this concept that the numbers don't lie. Well, numbers lie all the time. The numbers don't lie. It's how you position them. Can you talk a little bit about organizations and how they can be as transparent and honest as possible with the numbers, and why that is important for the donors?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I feel like you see a lot in politics and stuff. Somebody saying, "Oh, GDP is this, so things are good," or vice versa. Numbers are unemployment, whatever. You can sort of spin the numbers any way you can. There is some hard data on finances that I think that if you have a good accountant and your books are accurate, that they're going to be correct and they do mean a lot. But part of Charity Navigator's future here and what we've been working on the last couple of years is to get beyond that. So we do want to show some core hard data numbers, but we do want to get more into sort of the storytelling and go beyond that and sort of really tell the holistic approach to the organization. Because we get it. There's ways to sort of make the numbers maybe look a little better than they are, or they could look worse than they really are, depending. So that's sort of our approach, to go beyond that and have and we do weighting. So our new system is weighted accordingly. Right now, like impact and results is weighted more than the other things, even finances. So like you have to have good finances, but the impact in the road is more important. So I think that's one way of sort of changing the conversation, and also ensuring that numbers that look one way or another in certain for a few metrics aren't going to totally mislead or even change our rating. We're sort of trying to focus on what's really important. But again, getting that data is sort of harder. That's sort of why a lot of people focus on some of those harder numbers and financial ratios, because that's a little bit more easily accessible. But we're trying to push the industry here at Charity Navigator to get more of that other information out, because it's as important or more important.
Yeah, I think it's like outputs and outcomes, right? Like I can count the number of people that we serve each year. And so maybe it goes up, maybe it goes down. What does that really mean? But what we really want to see is outcomes. Like, how have we helped people long-term, or how have we improved the environment long-term, or whatever the issue is. It's that more long-term data, which is hard to get. So I think, all of us, donors and nonprofits, it's easier to look at that short-term data and say, oh, okay, you served more people this year, that's good, but that may not be meaningful. So getting to the outcomes, I think, is something that the sector is really trying to make easier for nonprofits.
So Sandy, did we cover everything you wanted to cover today with Matt?
I think so. Are you guys still growing at Charity Navigator?
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is kind of, I just was talking to the CEO the other day about it, and I said, this is unbelievable, because we're at 30 employees. And
wow.
Sandy, you remember we were what, five?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, definitely growing by what we do and staff, which is great. And I guess, I'm the dinosaur now, but hopefully that's a good thing for them, so I can keep telling them, make sure we don't make mistakes we made in the past, kind of thing, and keep moving forward. And yeah, it's been a wild ride, and I'm proud of the work we've done, and I'm really proud of how we've moved the needle. And I think there's a lot more information out there about the nonprofits than there ever been before, and it is more easily accessible because of us pushing that a little more for the sector.
Great. Good luck with the growth.
Yeah, thanks.
So Matt, as we come to a close of the show, where can people find Charity Navigator, and where's the best place for people to reach you? It could be social media, LinkedIn. Why don't you tell people where to find Charity Navigator and where to find you?
Well, the easiest is charitynavigator.org, and you'll come right to our homepage, where you'll have a lot of resources, including all our ratings. And I think that's another thing that separates us and that's kept us going is our ease of use. You could get some information, you could drill down very much if you want, or you could just sort of get a quick couple of ratings and move on with your day. The charitynavigator.org is our website. We're also very busy on social media. Of course, nowadays, Facebook, Twitter, as well. And I could be reached through the website as well. Our contact information is there. And we offer a lot of tools and resources for nonprofits as well. You know, there's information there for them, and they could use our site for benchmarking purposes and, you know, see how they can improve based on what we're looking at.
And it's free, right? It's all free.
Oh, yes. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, that was a core of our founder. He wanted to, well, obviously we can't charge people we rate because that would be a bit of a conflict. So, but our website has been completely free since the start. And yeah, we're a nonprofit ourselves. So that's the other plug is, you know, if you like our work, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. So you could make a tax deductible donation to Charity Navigator as well via our website.
And Sandy, how about you? Where can they find the organization that you lead, and where can they find you?
My organization is Family Promise, and our website is familypromise.org. And likewise, we have a really amazing communication team that's very active on Instagram and all those places. I think we have a TikTok channel now or something too. That's not my area, but you can find me on Twitter at Sandra Miniutti and also on LinkedIn at Sandra Miniutti.
Oh, that's super. And you can find our website at the 501c3lookup.org. And you can find me everywhere at Buddy Scalera, LinkedIn, Twitter, all the places. Not TikTok though, Sandy. I'm not TikToking. So thank you so much, Matt, for joining us today, and Sandy for leading the conversation. And to you, our listeners, we hope you enjoyed the 501 Companion Podcast, and consider subscribing so you never miss an episode. If you have any questions, show ideas, or part of a charitable organization that wants to be on the show, visit the 501c3lookup.org website. You'll find our contact information, a complete list of our previous episodes, and of course, the extensive and free resources of the 501c3lookup.org website. Thank you for joining us on the 501 Companion Podcast. We hope you join us again next week for the information and inspiration to take your charitable mission to the next level. Goodbye.